And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis. You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
Good morning, Car Clinic affiliates. Your Car Clinic minutes for the week of December 9th, 2019 are about to head your way. So go ahead and press the record button. As always, thank you for broadcasting and listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Have a great weekend.
Hi, I'm Bobby Likis with today's Car Clinic Minute. Life in a fishbowl. No, not in an aquarium. The behaviors of these specimens were observed while they were driving their cars. When we come back, I'll tell you what you've been doing on the road.
O'Reilly. When your battery goes dead, everything can come to a stop. Don't take a chance on getting stranded. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts and get your battery tested free of charge. If your battery does need to be replaced, O'Reilly Auto Parts can help you find the exact Superstart battery that fits your car or truck at a guaranteed low price. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Stretch limos with tinted windows aside. What we do while driving is on display for everyone to see. And according to an Exxon poll of 1,000 drivers, our top 3 favorite activities are: 1 in 5 of us flirt with other drivers. Another 40% actually reach out and touch someone with our cell phones. And the number 1 private activity that 70% of us perform for public view is the ever-popular eating. Now that gives dining and dashing a whole new meaning. I'm Bobby Likis. Like us, you'll love us. Hi, I'm Bobby Likis with another Car Clinic Minute. A great service shop, as hard to find as truth, love, and the perfect hamburger. But when we come back, I'll tell you what my customers say they look for in an auto repair and maintenance center.
O'Reilly.
When your battery goes dead, everything can come to a stop. Don't take a chance on getting stranded. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts and get your battery tested free of charge. If your battery does need to be replaced, O'Reilly Auto Parts can help you find the exact Superstart battery that fits your car or truck at a guaranteed low price. O'Reilly Auto Parts, better prices every day.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Monday through Friday, as you're listening to Car Clinic Minute, I'm interacting with customers in my full-service maintenance and repair center. Here's what they say keeps them coming back, some for 28 years. I call the first the grandmother principle: trust, honesty, and good reputation. Second, courteous staff with can-do attitudes. Third, communication, pros that really listen. Fourth, appearance, clean grounds, and neatly dressed staff. And 5, professional workmanship and follow-up. How do these compare with what you want in a service center? I'm Bobby Likis. Like us, you'll love us. Hi, I'm Bobby Likis with today's Car Clinic Minute. Igpay Attenlay is a dialect designed to confuse. But if Pig Latin is easier to understand than the language spoken when buying a used car, I'll help translate the double talk when we come back.
O'Reilly.
When your battery goes dead, everything can come to a stop. Don't take a chance on getting stranded. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts and get your battery tested free of charge. If your battery does need to be replaced, O'Reilly Auto Parts can help you find the exact Superstart battery that fits your car or truck at a guaranteed low price. O'Reilly Auto Parts, better prices every day.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Need a quick course in Greek to buy a used car? Don't be confused, because I'm going to translate for you. Program vehicles are those that were allotted by car manufacturers to their executives. Off-lease vehicles are offered for sale by dealers at the expiration of a lease. And pre-owned or used vehicles are simply those that are traded in. One more translation? Here's how you say good deal. Pre-purchase inspection. Have your technician give your prospective vehicle a thorough check before you sign on the dotted line. I'm Bobby Likis. Like us, you'll love us. Hi, I'm Bobby Likis with another Car Clinic Minute. Wind changes directions, you crash your kite. Boss changes directions, you miss the deadline. But when we come back, I'll tell you how your car feels when you pull a sudden change.
O'Reilly.
When your battery goes dead, everything can come to a stop. Don't take a chance on getting stranded. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts and get your battery tested free of charge. If your battery does need to be replaced, O'Reilly Auto Parts can help you find the exact Superstart battery that fits your car or truck at a guaranteed low price. O'Reilly Auto Parts, better prices every day.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Quick changes are good for Cher's concerts, but some things are better eased into, like changing directions in your car. Confession time. While parking, ever shifted into reverse while your car was still moving forward? Oh, that hurts. It's like Curtis Martin racing downfield and having his direction suddenly changed by Derek Brooks. Yep, just like our bodies, transmissions suffer a jolt when abruptly switched from drive to reverse. So follow the lead of a kinder, gentler NFL. Bring your car to a full stop before changing directions. I'm Bobby Likis. Like us, you'll love us. Hi, I'm Bobby Likis with today's Car Clinic Minute. Aviator Amelia Earhart, astronaut Sally Ride, and shuttle commander Eileen Collins are women who made transportation history in the air. When I come back, I'll tell you about their grounded sisters.
O'Reilly.
When your battery goes dead, everything can come to a stop. Don't take a chance on getting stranded. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts and get your battery tested free of charge. If your battery does need to be replaced, O'Reilly Auto Parts can help you find the exact Superstart battery that fits your car or truck at a guaranteed low price. O'Reilly Auto Parts, better prices every day.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Girl power is nothing new. Women have been making car history since the turn of the century. The first public chauffeuse, or woman driver, was Miss Daisy Post, a member of the Vanderbilt family. The holder of driver's license 322 was 13-year-old Jeanette Lindstrom, who claimed she'd already been driving 2 years. And move over, Thelma and Louise. Mrs. Alice Ramsey and 3 women friends blazed the cross-country trail in 1909, declaring their biggest problem was not having enough luggage room. I'm Bobby Likis. Like us, you'll love us.
Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Countdown to 3-minute mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Countdown to 1-minute mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Countdown to 30-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Countdown to 10-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. If you have a car question for Bobby, call now at 1-800-264-5454, toll free from anywhere in America. And now, here's your host, Bobby Likis.
And good morning, folks. Welcome to this edition of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Right along with me this hour, and we'll exchange ideas and opinions about automobiles. And, you know, that's one of the no matter what happens day in and day out with our business here or with life, it just seems that every day there's something new on the horizon with regard to the transportation industry. One of my favorite new things is the Genesis G90. It's a 2020 model Genesis G90. I don't know, a friend of mine's looking at a used G90, which I think may be a better buy, in as much as the grill on the new G90 is claimed to be the largest grill on any car ever made. And I will tell you, folks, I don't know what's wrong with Hyundai. The grill is hideous. It is like let me make it bigger. Well, okay, not just wider and broader and taller, but we can't go any broader than the front of the car. We can't go any higher than the nose. But hey, wait, we can go lower. So they took the bottom line, the horizontal bottom line of the grill, and they teardropped it so that it drops down almost to the road. I still think it's a neat car, but I think it has a hideous grill. I said all that to say, call me at 888 Car Clinic. We'll talk about your cars. A 2013 Honda Accord came in the shop running rough, stalling, and a check engine light. The vehicle had originally been repaired by another shop. After a thorough diagnosis, we found the vehicle was generating a bad signal from the crankshaft position sensor. This seemed odd as it had just recently been replaced, but the scope doesn't lie. A bad waveform signal needs to be fixed. Our solution? A new crankshaft position sensor from Motorrad. A longtime leader for vehicle thermostats and caps, Motorrad now offers engine management products that are engineered to meet and or exceed OEM specifications. They're designed to perform under severe operating conditions and are resistant to extreme heat. We made the change and that fixed the car. Motorrad engine management products are manufactured in Tier 1 OEM facilities with top quality qualifications. They undergo comprehensive 100% in-line and end-of-line testing to ensure uncompromising quality. Learn more about Motorrad engine management products and other Motorrad solutions at Motorrad.com. Folks, you know that tune-ups are often scheduled at 100,000 miles, but carbon constantly builds up on the valves and the combustion chambers inside an engine. Fuel injectors can also become clogged. Thanks to Berryman, with their 4-step professional air and fuel management kit, we can clean both the wet side, which is the fuel side, and the dry side, which is the intake manifold side of your engine. We use Berryman's 4-step professional air and fuel management maintenance kit to clean the fuel system and decarbonize both the wet and dry side every 30 to 40,000 miles. It features mass airflow sensor cleaner, air intake and throttle body cleaner, an intake valve and combustion chamber cleaner, and a liquid pourable professional fuel system cleaner. Learn more about Berryman's 4-step professional air and fuel management maintenance kit at berrymanproducts.com. That's berrymanproducts.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Ricey Outfitters, I'm Tina. How can I help you?
I'd like to place an order.
Great. Which item?
The cotton roll neck sweater, large.
Okay. Periwinkle, Loden, or caramel?
The caramel, please.
The what?
I'd like it in caramel.
Oh, the caramel?
Yeah, that's what I said, Tina.
Actually, you said caramel when it's pronounced caramel.
Can't we just call it yellow?
No.
Everyone knows the best part of a Milky Way. They just don't know how to say it. After all, it's our caramel.
It's caramel.
Ugh, that makes a Milky Way great.
You start my morning, you stir in my soul, you warm my heart, make me feel whole. Your aroma calls me, starts my morning, happy morning. Your name is Folgers Mountain Grown, now you're here. Your aroma helps me wake and the day is mine to take. The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
Okay, let's get started with today's broadcast. Hannah will take your calls at 888 Car Clinic, and I'll put you on the air. Bobby Likis Car Clinic is brought to you in part this morning by Omnicraft. Backed by Ford, Omnicraft parts are quality fit and competitively priced, and therefore, as you may not have guessed, non-Ford and Lincoln vehicles, although these parts are manufactured and offered for sale by Ford. You can learn more about Omnicraft Auto Parts at omnicraftautoparts.com. So what that means is you get the Ford warranty. If you're in the independent repair business, then certainly you can offer your customers OEM parts from an OEM, even though they don't drive a Ford or a Lincoln product, by buying Omnicraft parts. Omnicraft Auto Parts. Way cool, great parts, great fit, and a great company. Okay, what are we going to talk about this morning? That's a topic that I think of every every Saturday. ILSAC GF5 is the outgoing specification for motor oil. And for all you do-it-yourselfers out there, you need to be aware of the new ILSAC GF6 motor oil. And a little later in the program, I'll share with you the latest information that I have found on the ILSAC GF6. So what's the primary difference? Well, the primary difference is better quality with regard to protection of engine parts. A longer life because the engines are better and more tightly toleranced to built today. But more importantly, lower viscosity. Now, you've heard of 0-20, right? And you may have heard me mention 0-0 oil that the NASCAR folks use to qualify. Well, if you've got a new, or you're buying a new vehicle, starting next year, when ILSAC GF6 comes out, the motor oil that's going to be used in your engine will be a 0-16. Now, I'll share with you a little more information about that as we go on with the program today, but don't be surprised if you're not going to see 0.8 viscosity. What is zero? What is that? So what that means is, zero, folks, pours like water. Can you imagine having something so thinly veiled as a 0-16 viscosity oil in your vehicle? Well, the reason for that is the tolerances are tighter. So if you want to keep an engine new longer, and you want to seal, just like in your home, like a window or a door frame or what have you. See, the problem with homes, they're not machined. And the problem with homes is when it's cold outside, it's cold inside. And you have the heater on, but there's always cold spots in the house, especially around the windows or a draft or the floors or what have you. Well, what if you could totally seal, just like the studio that I'm currently broadcasting from the center of the automotive universe? The floor of this studio weighs 10,000 pounds. I've mentioned that many times. The walls are 4 inches thick, and it's like, well, actually, it's like a tomb, you might say. Although I do have several windows and a main inlet and outlet door and a separate AC system. But even the AC system for this studio, which I'm looking at 3 vents right now that are standard vents, they're like 8x8 vents. There's 3 of them, and that flows 300 CFM per minute. That's cubic feet per minute into the studio and out of the studio. Now, I said all that to say this: if you look at the wall and you look at the vent, it's about, well, let's see. Yeah, it's about 3 times the size, maybe 4, of your car's AC vent. But it's just an AC vent. However, if you look outside of the studio, there's a box that is about 2 feet wide, 8 inches deep, and 9 feet long. And the air conditioner blower blows through flexible ducting into this box. And this box has traps and passageways and some type of, like asbestos, I'm sure it's not asbestos, but some type of material that causes the air to have to flow around and about to get into the little vent. And what that means is it stops any noise from coming in through the air conditioner vents. You know, you've all seen movies or you've had hotel rooms where, you could hear the room next door through the air conditioner. Well, that's impossible here, or highly improbable. And in fact, this studio is located within an automotive service shop, and we can actually have an impact gun, rat-tat-tat in the background, and I would not hear it in the studio. Certainly, I could have a little faint rat-tat-tat in the back, but you'd never hear it through the microphone. So I said all that to say that's just part of the studio. How's that relate to oils and how does that relate to engines in your home? Well, if you could build your front door or your windows in your home so closely toleranced that there would be zero leakage of air in or out, cold air, hot air, depending on the time of year, of course, then you would have a reduction in your power bill like you've never seen before. Fact, you would have a reduction in cold or hot air exchange and wind and what have you. But here's a problem. As your house gets hotter, it expands, and the house is bigger than a window, so the fit and finish wouldn't be the same. And the same thing is true for cold. In cold weather, the house would shrink and you couldn't raise or lower the window because, for all intents and purposes, or open the door because it would stick. So you're relegated to working clearance. Well, think about it. And when you really think about clearances, the difference between like ABS systems, the anti-lock systems in your car, if you're in a panic situation, you nail the brakes and you slide right up to the car in front of you. If you can stop within 1/1000th of the car, now a hair on your head is 2/1000, a newspaper is 2/1000. So if you could stop within 100,000th of the car, you would not hit the car, right? That's right, because you've got 1,000th clearance. Well, I mean, that's cutting it close, way too close. But if you could do that. So what the manufacturers have done and are doing, they're continually tightening the clearance, the closeness, the tolerances within the engine. So much so, and how can they do this? Well, they can, and when you machine something, you machine it to a tolerance. So let's say something has to be like a bore of a piston hole, 4 inches. 4 inches plus or minus what? Well, plus or minus a 0.5 that's sloppy. 0.2 of a thousandths, that's pretty close. So if you could bore a cylinder block to within 4 inches plus or minus 0.2 of a thousandths, then that would be a real close tolerance. Now, then you could make the piston 4 inches minus 1/1000. Then if you had a hole that was 4 inches minus the 2/10,000ths, and it had a piston that was 4 inches plus 2/10,000ths, it would stick because it could be the same size and a piston would seize. So you got to have working clearance. However, the tighter you can manufacture and machine those metal parts in your engine, then the longer they will last. However, the tighter you get them, the less forgiveness you have between the running and operating parts of that engine. And a good example is a piston. A piston has to have about 1/1000th and a half clearance in order not to seize, because the piston gets a lot hotter than the cylinder. And as a result, it is made of aluminum. And as a result, then it grows. And it grows more than cast iron or even aluminum block. So the real bottom line is all of that has to be taken into consideration. So when you finally get that engine as tightly toleranced as you can, and you have the machines and the materials that you can control that plus or minus factor, see, there's the trick, then you can use thinner oil, because if you use thicker oil, the oil will not get into the space between the two metals, and then you have disaster. Now, isn't that interesting? And that's where ILSAC GF6 comes in. It actually fills those not nano areas, but certainly very close tolerances. Anyway, I just thought that would be interesting and something you should know about when you get your car serviced. More when I come back. Don't go away. Today's vehicles have more than 150 electrical accessories for safety, comfort, and sustainability, and much more than 20 years ago. Clarius is the world's largest producer of automotive AGM batteries that are precision engineered to meet today's electrical demands. Things like backup cameras, GPS, navigation, entertainment systems, and start-stop technology. AGM batteries have up to 2 times the life of traditional batteries and are non-spillable. When you need a battery, make sure you ask for an AGM battery to meet today's evolving electrical needs. Visit autobatteries.com for more information.
Let's go inside the mind of a 10-year-old.
I should have worn earrings today.
Buckle up, Sarah.
Michaela's got like the best earrings.
Sarah, buckle up.
I wish my name was Michaela.
We're not hitting the road until you buckle up, honey.
Oh yeah, seatbelt. I wonder if there's pizza at school today.
It can be tough getting through to kids, but it's your job to make sure they're wearing your seatbelts. Never give up until they buckle up. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council. Visit safercar.gov/kidsbuckleup for more information.
This week, a 2012 GMC Acadia rolled into the shop with 102,000 miles. The engine made a putt-putt noise, stumbled, and the check engine light was flashing. Our service history research showed that the vehicle had been thoroughly neglected in terms of maintenance, specifically oil changes. The conclusion? Carbon deposit issues on the valve train coupled with sticky piston rings. Our solution? Berryman B60 High Mileage Fuel System Rejuvenator. Berryman B60 is strong, featuring HEST, or High Energy Solvent Technology, which provides one-tank cleanup of fuel injectors, intake valves, and combustion chambers. Berryman B60 helps restore lost power, reduces rough idle and hesitation, and improves overall drivability. We poured in a can of Berryman B60, and a short time later, problem solved. Learn more about Berryman B60 High Mileage Fuel System Rejuvenator, along with other great products at berrymanproducts.com. That's berrymanproducts.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
The airlines like to have sales. Summer getaway sales, holiday sales, winter sales. Truth is, at any moment, some airline somewhere is on sale with low fares to great destinations. Travelocity knows exactly what's going on, who's on sale, to where, and when, at over 700 airlines worldwide. We even have this nifty feature that lets you look at a calendar so that you can see exactly the days the great fares are available. Travelocity.com. Go virtually anywhere. AOL keyword, travel.
Hun, guess my temperature.
It's 2 a.m. Go to sleep.
Come on, one guess.
I'm 98.
Higher.
Higher, 99.
You're getting warmer. Wait, I'm getting warmer.
Cold symptoms keeping you from getting a good night's sleep? Get NyQuil. The nighttime sniffling, sneezing, coughing, aching, stuffy head, fever so you can sleep better to feel better medicine. Use as directed.
One more guess.
100?
Yes. Tell her what she's won, Bob.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
They're miles worth of an airline.
Okay, I'm back. Well, okay. Sorry, thank you, Fabio. So, folks, what you heard was, now that's really interesting. That's the first time I've ever done that. I was so involved. We're talking about cars, obviously, in the break there, and so Jonathan and I were talking about cars. So here's the deal. So we had in the shop this week a late model 2016 Lexus, and it had a turbocharged, I think, 4-cylinder engine in it. Now the car came in, and it was overheating. But I drove the car. Oh, let's see, my loop is 6 miles. I drove the car my 6 miles when the owner brought it in, because he said it overheats. But he could drive it for, a long time, a day, half a day, and it wouldn't overheat. Then it would overheat. So anyway, I drove it because the technician drove it, and it didn't overheat with him. So I said, well, I'll go drive it. So I drove it aggressively, and it did not overheat. So I left the car sit overnight, and I said, well, in the morning I'll come in and we'll start over again. Maybe we'll drive it through the warm-up cycle from cold to a normal operating temperature. So that's what we did. Well, when I got to work the next morning, Johnny, our master ASE certified technician, had already found the issue. The water pump was leaking, and it was low on coolant. Now, I looked at the coolant jug, the reservoir, at least what I thought was the reservoir, when I was looking to see if it was low on coolant. And that reservoir, I could see the water flowing through the reservoir. That was not the radiator water. It was the water that cools the turbocharger. and of course, the reservoir, the main reservoir, was restricted from view because it was located behind the radiator, top of the radiator, and there was a plastic engine cover. So I didn't really. I saw the water flowing on the little quart-sized container, and I just assumed that was the coolant level. Well, you could see it was full, but that was the coolant for the turbocharger, which of course was okay because the two separate systems there. So the bottom line was that, sure enough, the water pump had been leaking and the coolant was low. So we ordered a water pump for it, and it took a day or so to get that water pump in. We replaced the water pump. Now this car, 3, 4, 5 days had gone by, and the engine was still overheating after we put the new water pump and topped off the fluid. Now understand, it wasn't overheating continuously before, but it was after we put a new water pump and topped off the fluid. We knew the fluid. Actually, we didn't just top it off. We did a pre-repair service on it and flushed it. And although it wasn't that bad, but you always do that when you put new parts in, we did not replace the thermostat in the vehicle, which is our normal protocol. The reason we did not is that this car has two thermostats. It has one thermostat that's mounted on the front of the engine that controls the engine temperature. It has another smaller thermostat located underneath the air conditioner compressor and the turbocharger, which the book said took 19 hours to replace. Well, obviously, we're certainly not going to invest 19 hours of our customers' labor and time and dollars unless we knew for sure that thermostat was defective. And besides, it didn't control the engine. It was obviously there to control the lower half of the engine thermostat. See, there are two thermostats in an engine. One controls the head's temperature, which gets hot quickly, and the other one controls the bottom of and the engines are sophisticated and have two thermostats these days because you want the cylinder heads to get hot as quickly as possible so you can have fewer emissions and a more complete flame front, cleaner burning. But you can't open, as older cars do, you can't open the same thermostat and have one thermostat because the bottom of the engine takes forever to get warm because you got to heat the oil up, which cools the block, and you got to, so anyway, the bottom line, we then ordered a thermostat for this 16 Lexus, and we replaced the thermostat and drove the vehicle. Well, in replacing the thermostat, there's a wiring harness that's within a bulkhead or a harness protector, a big plastic cage that bolts across the front of the engine. This plastic cage is about the size of a 2-inch PVC pipe and bolts onto the engine and protects the wiring from, of course, the engine, and you wouldn't have wires that would fall down and what have you. So it's a housing to get the wire. Conduit. It's a conduit. All right. Yeah, there you go. So we removed the conduit and disconnected the two bolts that held the conduit on and disconnected the wires where they were connected, which was only 3 connectors. And then there were 5 grounds, but the plate that these grounds were hooked up to were bolted to the block with 1 bolt. So we did not have to remove the ground. So Johnny never took the bolts loose from the grounds. He just took the mount loose that the mounts were bolted to. So it was no big deal. And then he took the 2 connectors off of the main engine computer that also had to be disconnected and moved that aside, never removing any of this from the car. Just moved that aside so he could gain access to the thermostat. Replace the thermostat, put it back together. After replacing the thermostat and putting it back together, the temperature gauge did not work. The fans blew all the time, so he got out his very professional scan tool and scope and saw that the engine temperature was reading minus 40 degrees. minus 40. Now, this is Pensacola, Florida. It's cold, folks, but it's never cold like minus 40. 35 or 40 is cold for us. So it was reading minus 40. Now, the computer has 2 plugs. And these plugs, one plug had 92 pins in it. Now, imagine a pin, the sharp part of a pin that is maybe 3/8 of, 200,000ths of an inch long, the size of a small eyelash. It's what they look like, eyelashes. 92 eyelashes that you're looking down at this computer that face up, and then you have the plug that goes in that has 92 receptacles with also female sockets where these eyelashes plug in. Now, these are pins, and they're very delicate, and they're brass for better connectivity. And then there's another plug that had about 30 or 40 plugs. So about that time, I walked up just to say hello, and Johnny was very frustrated. I mean, he had 4 cars that he was diagnosing and working on, and like he always does. And when you've got a master ASE certified technician who is also the shop foreman, he is the guru in the shop. So I walked up, and he said, "I'm not having a good day, man." And he said, "I've got this car. It's got an engine temp problem, yada yada yada. It's a mechanical problem. Now I've got an electrical problem." So what had happened? And by the way, when you plug in the connector for this 92 pins, there's a guide rail, 4 guide rails. So you put the plug in that's about 4 inches long and 2 inches wide. Well, it's about 5 inches long and 1.5 inches wide, and it's a plastic housing. It slides into rails so that the rails guide the plastic fitting directly into and onto the wire eyelash connectors so that you don't damage any. And this is, rarely if ever have I ever seen one damaged. Well, somehow or other, one of those pins was bent. That obviously we did. We bent that pin because it wasn't like that to start with. The gauge worked to start with. Didn't work after we took the wires loose of the pin. So it was just quite amazing. So I said, "Well, tell me what you disconnected." I took this, and this. Well, okay, they're hooked up. And the temperature gauge sender, the unit from the block, was okay. We checked it. But the bottom line is the computer, and he had his master computer out. Thank God we've got the right equipment. And it was reading minus 40 degrees. So we knew that there had to be some open circuit somewhere. And so I pulled the small plug out and looked down, and it looked good to me. I put it back in. And then we talked a bit. Then I pulled the big plug out and looked down, and you couldn't really see the pins except because they're standing up and they're down in a recess, and they're like eyelashes, but except they're little shiny dots. But I could see in the middle of all these shiny dots, there was like an eyedropper shiny spot. And sure enough, one of those pins had been damaged and bent. So we took the computer out of the car, only 2 bolts, and took it into the lunchroom. And Johnny held it, and I took a pair of I took an ice pick first and tweaked it to get it up. And then I took a pair of a surgical needle nose, and we have some of those that we use, and straightened that pin very carefully until it was as perfect as the others, and that fixed the car. So I share this with you because what are the odds? In fact, this is what I was talking with Jonathan about during the break. What are the odds are if you have a male-female connector with 92 pins, and you take it apart to gain access to what it covers up, and you put it back together, and you bend one of the pins, and it no longer is connected, and that pin happens to be connected with and the very wire that feeds the information from the engine temperature sensor to the computer. What are the odds? Well, Jonathan says 1 in 92. So I guess that's right, except that what are the odds are that it would be the very part that you're working on, because it could have been an injector, it could have been no telling what. I mean, there's 92 pins there, and there's 30 more in the other plug. So I just found it very interesting, and that's just goes to show you that two heads are not always better, but certainly a pair of trained eyes and information. And while he proved that there was no connection, there was a problem with the pin connector, it was just by sheer experience that we said, okay, let's look visually at this circumstance and just see if you can see anything wrong, you know. And sure enough, we did. Your calls, and when I come back, it'll be your time to fill me in on some interesting stories at 888-227-2546 when I come back. A 2015 Ford Escape recently came into the shop, 120,000 miles and going strong, but it was starting to hesitate, and the customer also complained of declining fuel economy. This 2-liter turbocharged engine is GDI, or gas direct injection, and special maintenance is needed in certain areas, particularly the fuel system. We suspected carbon buildup, and sure enough, using a borescope through the spark plug hole, there was definite evidence of carbon buildup. GDI engines are different in the way they inject fuel, and it can create some issues with repair and maintenance. That's why it's important to use products rated for GDI, like Berryman's 4-step professional air and fuel management maintenance kit. Each step of the process is designed with GDI engines in mind. We use the kit, and after 2 weeks on the road, the car is performing noticeably better, and MPG has improved a bit. Learn more about Berryman's 4-step professional air and fuel management maintenance kits and other great products at berrymanproducts.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Waking up can be a chore, but mornings knocking on my front door. Know just what I'll do. Put on a pot of Folgers brew. Mountain grown aroma hits the spot. Helps me give all that I've got. An opportunity to start out smiling and happy. The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
I'm privileged to be involved with Capstone Adaptive Learning, formerly known as United Cerebral Palsy, for over 25 years. Since 1953, Capstone has provided quality care programs for persons with developmental disabilities like autism, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, and intellectual disabilities. Dr. Sherry White with her team are dedicated to Capstone's clients, and 100% of your contributions stay local to serve those in this community. Go to capstoneadaptivelearning.org to see the difference Capstone makes.
Technology moves at the speed of innovation, and today, that's lightning fast. So when you get your hands on the latest tech, don't forget to do the right thing with your old devices. Recycle them. The Consumer Technology Association and its members are making recycling your old tech device as easy as purchasing new ones. Just go to greenergadgets.org, type in your zip code, and you'll instantly find the responsible recycling location closest to your home. You'll also find lots of tips to simplify your recycling, like asking the store where you buy your new TV if they'll haul away your old one. Television sets, video game consoles, smartphones, tablets, they're all recyclable. Don't let them clog up your local landfill. Just visit greenergadgets.org. You're sharp enough to get the latest tech tools into your home. Now be responsible enough to get your old devices to the recycler. That's greenergadgets.org.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome back to this edition of this segment of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. OBD2 Diagnostics Made Easy. How to Make Diagnosing OBD2 Problems Easier by Steve Cook is a book. I gave away a couple of these books recently, and I have another one here. In fact, this one belongs to me, and I'm going to give it to you. So if you're interested in, now understand, not everyone's going to want this book. You don't have to be a technician, but certainly you would really have to be a very savvy do-it-yourselfer to even be interested in the book. I've used it, I've gleaned information from it, and I do have a complete set of books that Steve sent to me for my team. So if you're interested in this book, I'll give it to you.
just give me a call and say, Bobby, I'd like to have that book. And it's all about how to make diagnosing OBD2 systems easier. And there's, I won't even begin to tell you, there's sine waves in here, there are inputs, outputs, there's airflow sensors, and I mean, it's just a huge, it's got diagnostic equipment repair facilities, diagnostic strategies, on and off sensors, temperature sensors, engine coolant, pressure sensors, airflow sensors, air fuel sensors, NOx sensors, really? Code type P60, page 67, types of communication protocol, networks, U codes, how's your breathing, page 101, and fuel or ignition, page 106. So Steve sent me these books, and he's just really a master service technician for 20 plus years, Steve Cook, and I'll give this book to some lucky winner here. And I say winner, I'm not going to pull any names out of the hat, but if you're interested in the book and you think you'd like to have it, you call in at 888 Car Clinic. I'll choose one of the callers today and just send it to you, courtesy of Bobby Likis Car Clinic and, of course, Steve Cook, our good friend who wrote this book. Let's go to Dale in New York. Dale, welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Thank you for holding.
Good morning, Bobby.
Morning, sir.
Yeah, I have a 2011 EcoBoost V6 Ford pickup. I bought it when it had about 60,000 miles. And it seems that if I let it sit for more than a few days, when I fire it up, it has the old lifter rattle like the old cars used to do.
Right.
Is that a problem with them, or?
Well, today's engines, it could be timing chain issue, yes. Here today's, in fact, you may have heard me mention about the ILSAC GF6. Some of the issues, and here's the problem that may have to do with your vehicle, and that's why they're changing the oils. They being the manufacturers that are pressing the oil industry to change oils. When number one, and I'll make this short. The EPA says to the manufacturers of cars, you will make an engine that pollutes less. And then the manufacturers say, you will make an engine that gets better gas mileage. And so if I'm OEM, if I'm Ford and you're Mercedes or whatever, and we're fighting the battle and I am paying our engineers to come up with a better widget, a better design. And you can always improve, on the design of an engine. So the biggest way to improve on an internal combustion engine from an emissions standpoint and from a horsepower and a torque and MPG delivery standpoint is to increase the power and also decrease, which means you got to decrease the friction and to increase the longevity so that it stays cleaner and doesn't pollute the air. So how do you do that? Well, you tighten those tolerances up. So you got an engine that's really tight in tolerance. You got skinny oil. Well, the only thing it doesn't like light, I call skinny oil light. And really, fat oil is 20/50. Skinny oil is 0/20. So right. When you make an engine tight and you have to have skinny oil that can get through the tighter tolerances because oil has to go in between the bearings and the pistons and walls, then you lose some of the protection for the timing chain, because the timing chain is not about clearance. It's about rollers that fit into it like a bicycle. Just think of a bicycle. And you got to have room for the rollers to go in and out of each one of the sprockets, the teeth on the sprockets. So the challenge is to make an oil skinny enough that it can go through the tighter tolerances and still heavy enough that it can cushion those teeth. And so that's a battle. Having said that, when you turn an engine off, Dale, when you shut your engine down, there's a loss of oil pressure because, the engine's not running.
Right.
When you fire it up, until the oil pressure builds up, the timing chain tensioners, plural, tensioners, don't push out against the chain. And as a result, that chain rattles. Now, the rattling doesn't necessarily hurt anything, because the timing chain tensioner, let's just think about it this way, and I'll try to be concise here.
Right.
As the chain wears and the sprocket wears, the tensioner has to go further out to take up the slack, right?
Right.
Well, let's say that you had 200,000 miles of wear and it had to go out 200,000s, and then you turn the motor off, and then it would come, the oil pressure would go away, so the tensioner would come back 200,000s, and when you crank the engine up, it would jump time. So the tensioner has a toothed sprockets, like steps, like you're walking up steps.
Yeah.
And depending on the width of each step of the little tooth gear in the tensioner, it would go out a click at a time, so that as the engine wore and the sprockets wore and the chain stretched, it would have to stretch X amount to allow the tensioner to get to the next step. Click, and over 10,000 miles another click. Because if you had, and the how fine these clicks are would determine how big the steps are. Well, if you had the clicks too fine, the steps too narrow, then the tensioner would, at its loosest point, which is when the engine is cold, because the head and the cams are closer to the crankshaft because the block is shorter and the head's shorter and it hasn't expanded, then what would happen is the chain would immediately tighten up, and when the engine got hot, it would be too tight and it would cause damage because it would be too short, and you can't stretch a chain.
Yeah.
So there's a fine line between, and an engineering point between the width of and the length of stretch that's allowed in between the next click to take up the slack. You see where I'm going there?
Right,
okay.
right.
You're at the point to where your tensioner doesn't quite reach the next step. It's close, and in that little span of mileage and wear, you're hearing this noise.
Right.
Which is not an issue, except like me, because my engine's been that way since it was new. The Jag engine has the noisiest chains of any engine I know of, except Maseratis. And Maseratis, they're terrible cars, by the way. Anyway, they really are. They're terrible engines, terrible. I mean, they're old technology and what have you. And perhaps the 2020 is going to be better, but for my knowledge, a 10-year-old Maserati is the worst used car you could buy. Anyway, but having said that, just my opinion. Having said that, the Ford has new chains and new tensioners, and every time we put, for instance, on some of those, and I think yours is included, the water pump on your vehicle is inside the engine. So one of these days, you're going to have to put a water pump, and I will tell you, Dale, you make sure you call me before you have a water pump replaced, if your engine is the one I think that it is that has a water pump within the engine that's driven by the timing chain, because the very person that puts the water pump in had better replace the chain and the tensioners and the sprockets, because it's all a big kit, because that's the way you upgrade that engine. And also the water pump has a new seal, double seal, because as yours, when your water pump leaks, it's going to do two things. It's going to leak out a specific port and drop coolant behind the alternator, and you'll never see it. And it also will leak coolant into the oil, which you could see because the oil turned milky. Don't ask me why Ford did that. Ford's not the only one that did it, but I'm sure there's some engineering reason for that. But you can't make me believe that you would design a vehicle that we have to pay a technician 10 hours to replace a water pump when a normal water pump is 2.5 to 3 hours.
Right.
And
I've done that enough times.
Yeah, well, there you go, Dale. So anyway, in the meantime, don't use thicker oil because
I don't.
It won't.
I take my vehicle over to the Ford dealer to have it changed. I can't find the oil filter on that darn thing. You got to two panels.
Yeah. I know. So you're doing the right thing. Let the dealer do it, but actually monitor that oil, and also when you fire the engine, just let it, and then let it build its oil pressure, and just like me, grit your teeth and grin and bear it in the meantime. But when and if you have to replace the water pump, if you keep this car long enough, make sure you put the chains and the tensioners, and because I'm sure Ford will have updated all within that length of time. Hey, and thanks for your call. Glad you called.
You have a good day. I'll tell you, I don't want to date myself for age, but this, what it sounds like, is one of my first cars, a '59 Chevy Impala that had a 6-cylinder.
Yeah, I hear you. Hey, nice talking with you.
Nice talking to you, Bobby.
Thanks,
Have
Dale.
a good day.
You as well, sir. 888-227-2546. Go to Pete, who has a 2011 Hyundai. Pete, welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Glad to have you join us.
Hi, Bobby. How are you today?
Terrific. You, sir?
Doing fine. Yeah, I've got a problem. I've got that CRV. It's 2011. It's got 73,000 miles on it, and I've only had it about 4 months. But about 2 months ago, it started making a racking noise as you're driving, even on mostly level road pavement. And at first, I thought, it was just kind of like a popping and rattle noise. So I tried to check all the fairings and everything underneath there, and all that was good. And then I did have a bad boot on the strut, so I figured, and the strut was making a little bit of noise, so I changed that out, and that didn't fix it. Then the CV axle on that side, I changed it out, and it's still there, so I don't know where to go from here.
Well,
I don't know if you've seen this before or not.
I have many cars these days use a nylon ball joint ends for the sway bar, and sway bar, and you know what a sway bar is, I presume.
Yes.
Okay. Sway bar ends are common to wear and cause this little every time you hit a little bump. And then also the sway bar bushings, you've got a sway bar is a bar that's a metal bar that is a torsion bar that connects the left front and the right front. And for every up movement on the right side, if you're turning to the right, the car leans up on the right, it's trying to press down or lift up on the left. So that's what anti-sway, it's what it's for, anti-sway. So I would look at those sway bar connectors, because that's a common issue, and they wear, and they're inexpensive to replace. And if you're not sure, just maybe you just, I'll tell you what, why don't you just put a set of sway bar connectors on the vehicle and see if that doesn't solve the problem.
Okay, yeah, I can try that, but it does just like a 20 mile an hour in a neighborhood road.
Yeah.
Straight. So that's what made me wonder. It might not be the sway bar, but I guess it could be.
Well, it could, but if it were the sway bar, you could go over a little railroad track, or and it would do clock, 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 clock. You should be able to aggravate. Can you not aggravate the sound?
No, I can't. It just happens, like I said, just driving down the 20 mile an hour street. It'll just straight and narrow, it'll do it then.
Okay, so the next time it does it, don't let off the gas. Just maintain the speed. Lightly touch the brakes. Only that would make them semi-drag. In other words, you know better than to do this, but just touch the brake and see if by touching the brake pedal and putting a ever so slight amount of brake on it, and you can put too much and let off, put too much. See if you can make the noise go away. If you can, it could be a caliper rattle. And if you touch the brake and make the noise go away, you know it has to do with the calipers. And then that would be the slides. Try that first.
I actually, I forgot to tell you, that's the first thing I did try was I read up on it, and a lot of people said those caliper pins make that noise.
Yeah, okay.
I repacked those with grease, and it didn't change a thing.
Okay, then try this. As it's making the noise, swerve to the left. Make sure there's no police behind you. Swerve to the left and swerve to the right, and see if you can make the noise come and go, or affect the noise in any way. And then you'll be better to define which suspension part is causing the problem, if it is a suspension. Okay?
Yes, I appreciate it.
I appreciate it. You're welcome, Pete. Folks, that's all we have for this hour of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Another hour coming up. I have a comment from a caller, Fred, and this is really regarding the odds of the bent connector pin affecting the Lexus temperature gauge. And I think it's really, really cool. And Jonathan, I'm going to discuss this with him in between the end of this hour, which is coming up, and the first of next hour. And then when I open the next hour, I'm going to share with you the odds of which pin and would it be affecting that temperature gauge. Very interesting, folks. Don't go away. It's a lot of interesting stuff.
This is Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Bobby Likis Car Clinic is a copyrighted presentation of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated and may not be reproduced or rebroadcast without the express written approval of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated.
Folks, you never want to get surprised by a dead battery. A vehicle's original battery generally lasts about 3 to 5 years, but many fail long before then. Next time you're in for an oil service, have the technician test your battery. Better now than too late. Today's vehicles have start-stop systems, navigation, radio amplifiers, electric fuel pumps, 25 or more onboard computer modules, and serious electronic controls that depend on a strong, fully charged battery. Make sure the car you're driving has a healthy battery. Make yourself a note. Go to autobatteries.com and see for yourself how a battery can keep you safely driving down the road or put you on the side, just like that. At autobatteries.com, you'll see battery technology, battery testing, how to choose the battery, how to jumpstart your battery, and more about AGM batteries, my choice. I'm not here to make you a battery expert, rather to help you better understand why a reliable battery is essential for your road trips. Go to autobatteries.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
If you're familiar with the Kulseford section of the newspaper, you probably understand this message quite well. You see, in the Kulseford section, everything gets abbreviated. Consonants, vowels, prepositional phrases, the very building blocks of our language are thrown right out the window. And that makes it difficult when you're trying to sell your car. You've got a limited amount of space to work with. And by the time you abbreviate the description of your car down to a couple of fragmented sentences, it sounds less like a car and more like a Bluck sedan with sniffed like new condition lemals. No wonder more people are selling their cars through eBay Motors. They can post unlimited text and photo descriptions, and with a nationwide marketplace, they're likely to sell it for more. Plus, both parties can be covered by eBay's Vehicle Protection Program. Buyers are happy, sellers are happy, and no one's abbreviating. eBay Motors, a better way to sell your car.
Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Countdown to 3-minute mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Countdown to 1-minute mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Countdown to 30-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Countdown to 10-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. If you have a car question for Bobby, call now at 1-800-264-5454, toll free from anywhere in America. And now, here's your host, Bobby Likis.
And good morning. Welcome to this hour of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. This is the second time, Fabio, that I know I scared you this morning. So earlier, folks, in the first hour, Jonathan and I were discussing the odds of a 1 in 92 of a pin that we bent in a computer plug, male-female plug. And so when we came back from the break, the mic went hot, and I was having a discussion with Jonathan. Of course, we're all in the house here, and Hannah will take your calls at 888 Car Clinic. Fabio will put you on the air. I say I will, but he pushes the buttons, and he controls the volumes and the brakes and what have you. And Jonathan does a little bit of everything. So I'll share that with you when I come back, because it's very interesting to me is that there's a male-female plug. One of the plugs has 92 pins, and so in removing the plug, which has guided rails that allow you to put it in straight and take it out straight, we bent one of those plugs. What are the odds of, and we were working on a certain circuit of that car, and we had to remove the plug to gain access to the thermostat. What are the odds are the wire that was bent and the 92 pins, you think about this, that had to do with the temperature gauge, which is what we were, the function we were working on. What are the odds there? 92 pins, but it wouldn't be 1 in 92. Anyway, really interesting. Call me, 888 Car Clinic, when I come back. Time for another edition of Cooling System Q&A, brought to you by Motorrad, your first choice for vehicle thermostats and caps. Why is the thermostat so important? Cooling system regulates engine temperature and helps prevent overheating. While it's comprised of several components, the thermostat plays a critical role with efficient cooling system operation. It must regulate coolant flow properly to maintain a specific engine operating temperature, in addition to providing quick warm-up. Motorrad's new stainless steel thermal element UltraStat is unmatched for corrosion resistance. Its revolutionary Reax wax mixture provides quicker reaction time. The UltraStat also features bilinear valve technology, which prevents thermal shock to cooling system components, gradually increasing coolant flow versus instant maximum flow found in traditional thermostats. The UltraStat precisely controls engine temperature to ensure the lowest emission standards, maximum fuel efficiency, and terrific interior cabin comfort. The Motorrad UltraStat line is the perfect thermostat upgrade option with coverage for over 160 million vehicles on the road today. Motorrad, leading the way in coverage and service. Car repairs get expensive, and most of us don't have the money for them. That's where brands like K-Seal can really be a lifesaver. If you've had a car with a coolant leak, you know how expensive it can be. It's not usually the newer, higher-dollar vehicles that have leaks. It's the older vehicles, say $900 to $2,000 range, the cars we depend on for daily transportation and other vital tasks. If you're experiencing a coolant leak and the repair cost exceeds the value of your car, you don't necessarily have to take your car off the road. Try using K-Seal. We've seen our share of these in our shop where, before K-Seal, once a diagnosis was made of a leaking intake gasket, radiator, heater core, or head gasket, the car was sent for recycling and the owner had to purchase another. Before giving it up, try K-Seal. It's a pour-in solution that just may allow you to keep your car longer without spending more on repairs than the car is worth. Find K-Seal at automotive retailers everywhere, like AutoZone, and get more information at kseal.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Another lending success story from LendingTree.com.
Car dealers like playing games. They play percentage points, they play markups, but I don't like playing with my money. So I got my auto loan through LendingTree.com. I filled out one simple form, a marketplace of banks and lenders competed over it, and I got 4 offers back within hours. After all, the car buying game is a lot easier to win when you're holding all the cards.
LendingTree.com. When banks compete, you win. For additional information and state license disclosures, please visit our website located at LendingTree.com.
Driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome again to this hour of Bobby Likis Car Clinic, brought to you in part by Berryman and their intake valve and combustion cleaner. And this cleaner, folks, is formulated for use in all fuel-injected gasoline engines. In fact, Berryman's intake valve and combustion cleaner helps dissolve stubborn carbon buildup for a dramatic increase in performance and overall drivability. You can learn more at berrymanproducts.com. And I'll answer your question so you can learn more at 888-227-2546. Okay, here's a quiz. And I'm giving away this OBD2 Diagnostics Made Easy book by Steve Cook. And there's, I don't know how many pages. It's a half-inch thick, so there's a whole bunch of pages there. A lot of information, 150 pages roughly. And Steve Cook is a master ASE certified technician. He's been in the business for 20 years plus, and a lot of information in this book. He had a lot of information from other companies. I won't read the list of the companies that were instrumental in him bringing this information. But I think it's interesting that, and some of you, not necessarily a lot of you, but some of you who are do-it-yourselfers would just like to have more information, because you can never learn too much if you're working on your own automobile. Even if it's an operation that you're not going to perform, then you still would be able to perform those simple jobs much easier. And I think that it's an asset. I've read it. It's fantastic information. This actually is the book that was given to me, and we have a list and a book for all of our technicians. So it's OBD2 Diagnostics Made Easy by Steve Cook, and I'll give it to one of our callers today. We don't have to do anything particularly, except just express a desire for the book. And the first person that calls in that will say, I'd like to have that book, I'll be glad to share it with you and to mail it to you. 888-227-2546. Okay, so here's the drill. We had a Lexus that came in for an overheating problem. Ultimately, it was low on coolant, had a water pump leaking. Although it didn't overheat all the time. In fact, I drove it 8 miles and didn't overheat. But sure enough, the next morning we came in and it was low on coolant. We found the water pump was leaking. Took it apart, ordered a water pump, ultimately put the new water pump on and stopped the leak, but it still had an overheating issue that was a thermostat, so we ordered a new thermostat. So in the meantime, the car was apart for about, almost a week. Waiting on the thermostat to come in. The bottom line, in the meantime, to get to the thermostat, Johnny Bars, who is also an ASE Master Certified Technician, had to take a wiring harness that stretches across the front of the engine inside a controlled tube, a conduit, remove that. Didn't remove it from the car, but just removed it and moved it out of the way, and disconnected the computer. And in the process of reconnecting, the 92-pin plug bent one of the pins of the 92 pins. So here's a question for you. What are the odds of the pin that he bent, of the 92 pins in the computer, what are the odds of that particular pin being the one that controls the engine temperature sensor? And likewise, the engine temperature gauge, and it can control the fans. The fans ran all the time when you turn the battery back on. So the bottom line, he knew that the gauge wasn't working because the gauge didn't work, but also the scope that he was using, his professional scan tool, showed the engine temp at minus 40 degrees, which we know to be incorrect. Here in Florida, you just don't see minus 40 degrees. It wouldn't be working under a car if it were. But bottom line, what are the odds? So I have a caller, Fred, who called in, and he stated that the odds would equal 1 over 92 multiplied by 1 over 92, and there's a number. But I'd like to hear your. Now again, there are 92 pins. He bent one, and the very pin that he bent in these 92, and these are like little hairs, eyelashes that stick up. You can't even see them unless you hold the plug, look at it sideways, and they're down in a recess. So what are the odds of 1 in 92 that pin that he bent would be the pin that was associated with the very problem that we were working on, but not the problem? Anyway, interesting, I think. And speaking of computers, Bobby Likis Car Clinic is brought to you in part today by Diablo Sport. When I think of computers, I think of how can we super tune a car without having to modify anything. Well, they're offering now from Diablo Sport holiday savings up to 20% off of the suggested retail price of their extensive lineup of premium high-performance products. So take a drive over to DiabloSport.com for more information. And if you should call and order some tuner kit from Diablo Sport, tell them you heard it on Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Again, DiabloSport.com, 888-227-2546. Gas prices. up and down. Okay, the gas price is $2.57.5 nationally. West Coast, $3.40. Except for one region, that's an increase in the same time last year. So just for you to know, gas prices are inching up. Also, just for you to know, if you look at the same price last week, in 6 of the 10 regions rather, the prices are down. So are they up or are they down? Well, it's like a roller coaster. So the bottom line, $2.57 a gallon. I personally believe, given the changes in the political environment and given the changes in the electrification, easy for you to say, electrification of the fleet, which means more EV cars on the road, more and more. You're going to see more and more. How do I know? Because every single manufacturer of new cars is investing millions of dollars into electric vehicles and making offerings. And there are many, several, I don't know how many is the word, several cities that are banning internal combustion engines from the cities. And you're going to see that. I think Paris is going to be one of them. In France, not Paris, Georgia. I bet you could run a peanut shell in Paris, Georgia. No pun intended. But the bottom line, folks, the electrical cars, of course, pollute. And manufacturers, by the way, you say, well, how do OEMs build cars? OEMs sell cars by the tonnage or the measurement of emissions, of toxins that are distributed in the air, and by MPG. And to that end, that's where we are and why we will see next year, so you better be ready for this. I'm giving you fair warning, and I say fair warning, I'm actually giving the warning to my colleagues in the automotive service industry. ILSAC GF6 is the new motor oil. It's a major change in passenger car motor oil, and it's on the horizon. Kendall Motor Oil is working with original equipment manufacturers, that's the OEMs, as I mentioned, and the API, American Petroleum Institute, to develop products that meet the new ILSAC GF6 specifications. And so the Kendall Motor Oil team has compiled their answers to several questions regarding the future demands, and I want to share a few of those with you. If you're in the business, listen up. If you're thinking of buying a new car, or if you change your own oil, even if you don't, if you go to a qualified service shop for oil service and or a fast in, fast out, you need to know when you get your car serviced that that company knows what GF6, the ILSAC GF6 is. What is it? It's an oil specification. It represents the next iteration of improved oil specifications designed to meet the demands of modern engine technology, which has to do with lower viscosity oils such as SAE 0W16. You heard me right. Increased fuel economy, reduced emissions, and improved engine performance and durability. It's a primary pathway to meet the demands to make engineering changes to future vehicle hardware. Whenever manufacturers change hardware, the oil that protects the hardware in the engine has to be changed as well, and that's where the stress on oils comes in. So the ILSAC GF6 will show a step change improvement in oil robustness and wear protection, and this will be introduced with lower viscosity oil, such as I said, the GF6, which is 0W16. That information courtesy of our friends at Kendall Motor Oil. Your calls at 888 Car Clinic when I come back. In the service bay this week, an 05 Chevy Silverado. The truck was experiencing a front brake noise and a pull to the left when stopping. We performed a thorough inspection and found the front pads completely worn out on the driver's side. The passenger side looked to be okay, but we noticed a loose wheel bearing on that side. Why would the pads be worn on just one side? It was a seized driver's side brake caliper. So we replaced the pads and rotors on the front along with the driver's side caliper. Also replace the passenger side wheel bearing. Our parts choice for the repair, Omnicraft. With today's complex vehicles, not every part works or works well. Quality, fit, and function is a belief system in my shop. Approved and backed by Ford Motor Company for most non-Ford and non-Lincoln vehicles, Omnicraft quality brake parts will help ensure vehicle reliability and longevity. Learn more about Omnicraft brakes and other Omnicraft parts at omnicraftautoparts.com. Omnicraft Auto Parts, backed by Ford. Being car care aware is important all year round, but winter is an especially critical time as harsher conditions can strain your automobile. Here are a few items to check, courtesy of the Car Care Council. Winter means shorter days and longer nights. It's a great time to make sure interior and exterior lights are working properly, and don't forget to make sure your headlights are properly aimed. This item is often overlooked. The best way to warm up your engine in the winter is to drive gently at the start. Make sure your ice scraper and snow brush are accessible, and replenish your emergency kit. Jumper cables, a flashlight, blankets, extra clothes, bottled water, non-perishable food, and a first aid kit with any medication that may be needed. It may seem like a lot, but better safe than sorry. For more great tips, videos, and recommended service schedules, visit carcare.org. And while you're there, order a free copy of the Car Care Guide for your glove compartment. That's carcare.org.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Telephone tip
from Geico Auto Insurance.
When calling Geico to switch your car insurance, you will not need acetaminophen, naproxen, indomethacin, ibuprofen, a cold compress, an on-call acupuncturist, or any other pain remedy. In 15 minutes, you could save 15% or more. If it were any more painless, you could do it in your sleep, which is theoretically possible since we offer complete 24-hour service. Call 1-800-947-AUTO, 1-800-947-AUTO. Geico Direct, the sensible alternative.
When you purchase the latest TV, tablet, or smartphone, don't forget to do the right thing with your old ones. Recycle them. The Consumer Technology Association and its members are making recycling your old devices as easy as buying new ones. Just go to greenergadgets.org, type in your zip code, and you'll instantly find the recycling location closest to your home. You'll also find recycling tips, like asking the store where you buy your new TV if they'll haul away your old one. Don't let your old tech tools clog your local landfill. Just visit greenergadgets.org.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
So let me ask you a question. Have you ever taken your car in for an oil change and then somebody comes up to you while you're waiting on your oil change and says, well, you need this, 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 and this? I mean, that's a loaded question, but actually it's not really a loaded question because we all know the answer. The answer is yeah. And we all, I think now with you as consumers, I'm a consumer, being more savvy. I won't say we're more savvy than we were 20 years ago. I would say that the information that we need to learn and find is so much easier than it was 20 years ago. And of course, that's because of the internet. And there's an upside and downside to that. You cannot believe, especially in the automotive repair industry, you cannot believe everything that you read on the internet. Now, even if you could believe it, I mean, and there are a lot of honest, straightforward answers there, but specifically to find a solution to a problem that you have on your automobile on the internet the odds are almost nil. And I say that because it is common procedure that we, as a 48-year automotive service facility, not only look at our internet streamed, paid for vendors that we have, like alldata.com, is one of them, and there's others that we have, some 3 or 4. In addition, we bought and invested in the Lexus software. So we have the dealership Lexus software. We're sort of the de facto Lexus service shop in our area because there's no dealer in our town. But the bottom line, the challenge is, does the information that you glean from looking on the internet really have to do with helping you to fix your car? And so often what is there does not, because there are so many variables with regard to what's wrong with the vehicle. And I'll give you a common problem. A GM car with the taillights out. I mean, that's a common problem. You put new bulbs and it doesn't work, and the fuses are okay and it doesn't work. The brake light switch is okay and it still doesn't work. The problem, it's a printed circuit board. I mean, that's a common. O'Reilly Auto Parts has, I mean, I don't know how many they stock, but, you know, and here's another little, speaking of parts stocking. When you go, whether you are a do-it-yourselfer or a service provider, into a dealer or to a parts store, and you ask for a part, and you ask them, how many of these do you stock? Well, if they stock one, if they stock none, chances are it's an odd item, and it doesn't fail very often. If they stock 50 of them, it's a common item, and they people buy them all the time. Well, that's just economic reasons, you know that. I mean, that's the way it works. Like for instance, if you own a VW, you know, a little 4-cylinder VW, I can assure you, you go to the dealer, they're going to have 50 water pumps, because that's a common issue. It's such a common issue that, in my opinion, Volkswagen needs to redesign that pump. Maybe they did for 2020. But they're made of plastic or a plastic material, and the land, where the rubber O-ring fits into the groove that seals the water pump, that groove breaks away. And so when a part of the groove breaks away, the rubber pushes out of the groove and the water leaks. And that's a common problem. I know this because the dealer, of which we bought one, which failed, and we had to replace that same water pump on that same customer's car. The dealer gave us another pump, but we had to eat the labor because the customer couldn't be expected to pay it twice. But the bottom line is, it's a defective water pump from the factory. It's a defective manufacturing, and sooner than later, Volkswagen's going to change that when enough people learn about it. That's why I share it with you, and also it's not necessarily why, but I thought it would be interesting. But anyway, back to, we had a caller named Fred who called the first hour, the last segment of last hour, regarding the odds of a bent connector pin affecting the Lexus temperature gauge. Well, he stated that the odds would equal 1 over 92 multiplied by 1 over 92, which is 1 in 8,464. I guess I believe that, but I sure would, if Fred, if you're tuned in, I'd love for you to call me back and help me to understand how you came to that equation. And again, here's the scenario, folks. There are 92 pins in a computer. The plug has 92 female sockets, and these 92 eyelash pins plug into, and there's a guide. So it's really hard to bend one. What we did, we bent one. It just so happens that the one that we bent was affecting the temperature gauge, and that was what we were working on, or we were working on the engine temp, not the gauge, of this particular car. So I just, what are the odds of that? You know. Anyway, let's go to Jesse, take a call from Jesse with regard to a radiator. Jesse, welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Glad to have you in the house.
Good morning from cold Owego, New York, Bob.
Oh, cold, huh? Oh, well, what's on your mind this morning?
Well, I've got an issue with my cooling system. It's kind of strange. I mean, it operates normally. Sometimes it goes below the halfway mark. Other times it goes just above. But my heat is nowhere as hot as it used to be.
Well, when you say other times, any time that, now let's say that you drive the car you've driven it now for a total of 20 minutes, and it's normal operating temperature. After the temperature gauge reaches the normal place that it has for all these years you've owned the car, I mean, forget the fact that your heater doesn't work. After that gauge reaches its normal place in life, does it change down the road?
Yes, it does.
Okay, then the problem with a heater sounds to be as though there's a low coolant. And so the first thing that you need to do Jesse, is to check the coolant level. I know you've probably already done that, but here's the bottom line. In the morning, when the vehicle is cold, I would loosen the radiator cap, and it's a sealed cap, so you push down and you twist it, and when you loosen the cap, you should immediately get a little coolant that flows out. There should be zero void, zero air in the radiator itself. Now, I'm not sure your car has this because you didn't tell me what kind of car you drive, but does it have
It's a 2003 Chevy Ventura, so here we go.
So it does have a radiator cap on the cap, and plus it has a reservoir, correct?
Yes, it does. And actually, somewhere it's leaking. I can't find a leak, and there's no smell on my heater core or anything. There's no dripping on the, every morning I check underneath, and I cannot find a leak.
Yeah, I hear you. My concern is that it's, how many miles on this vehicle?
Right now, probably 100,000.
Well, ironically, we had a Chevrolet in this week that we had 4 of those Impalas, which is really strange because we don't usually get 4 of the same kind of car. They had 4 different issues. One was an engine issue that we had to replace the engine. Another one was an engine coolant issue. Of course, cold weather brings those out of the woodwork. And what I would recommend for you and your particular, now you led me to believe that you're having to add coolant. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, I actually had to add almost a gallon.
Oh. And you can see no leakage.
Nope. That's what's really getting me. I'm usually pretty good at coolant systems, but this one's throwing me.
Well, the water pump, if you can see it, and today's cars are designed so that sometimes you can't see the water pump. If you can see the water pump, and you take like a dentist mirror, which is a little mirror that's on a telescopic rod, and look.
Yep, I know what you mean.
Okay, look at Jesse. Look at the weep hole, or look
You're
for.
You're scaring me, Bob, because every time I see a weep hole, that's when I start weeping when it leaks.
No, hey man, I'm with you. Well, I tell you what, there's an easy way that you could. Well, first, I'd like for you to look at the weep hole to determine if there's a water pump issue. And here's what the problem is, and I've had this happen in a Mini Cooper that I had one time. Had a thermostat gasket leaking at 16,000 miles, and it never leaked on the garage floor, and you could never see it running down the engine, but you could see evidence of where it ran down the engine, like ring around the collar, So what
God, I haven't heard ring around the collar in a long time.
Well, think about it, Jesse. If you sprayed Windex on a window and didn't wipe it off and came back when it was dry, it would be a heck of a spot there, blotch, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, don't look for the coolant. Look for where coolant has been. Look for a white-looking, corrosive-looking blotch. Or easier yet, and I have to say this because it's a no-brainer. You may or may not have heard me mention K-Seal on my broadcast. If I were you...
Yeah. By the way, if you look on your app, you can see I've been on there, and that's what I mentioned. I'm going to give this car a royal flush, and then I'm probably going to find a leak, and I got K-Seal on standby.
Well, that is excellent, and because what you can do there is you can save yourself a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of money. And one thing about it, even if there's a challenge and the K-Seal doesn't stop the leak, I mean, if it's an internal leak or, water pump, what have you, it will. But even if it's not, if it's something that's totally broken on there, you'll do no damage by adding the K-Seal because it will not restrict or damage or clog any, because it has a ceramic versus the old sodium silicate, old-fashioned stop leaks. Anyway, you're on the right track. What I'd like for you to do is I'd like for you to proceed with your procedure with the cooling system update, and then add the K-Seal and let me know if that works.
All right, I'll do that. Hey, Bob, I would love that OBD2 book.
Well, you know what? You got it, my friend. You've got it. We're going to make sure, Fabio, we put Jesse back on hold, and I will send you this. It's OBD2 Diagnostics Made Easy. You will see when you get this book, it says Bobby. This is from Steve Cook. thank you for your years of dedication and service to the automotive industry. You have set an example for others to follow. Keep up the good work. We certainly could use more people like you in our industry. Best wishes, Steve Cook. And I'm going to sign it over to you, Jesse, and I thank you so much for your call. Folks, how terrific that is. I mean, that's just great. And he's the kind of guy that, while this would be, I guarantee you, over Jesse's head, because a lot of it's over my head. I mean, it's just so interesting, so in-depth, but it's really cool that someone from New York gets a little TLC from yours truly here at Bobby Likis Car Clinic. I'm going to take your calls at 888 Car Clinic when I come back after the break. Don't touch that dial. Folks, recently a 99 Chevrolet Blazer came into the shop. The owner was having problems with hesitation upon acceleration. He'd already changed out several parts: spark plugs, wires, ignition coil, mass airflow sensor, fuel filter, and the air filter element. He even changed the thermostat and coolant temperature sensor. Still had the same problem after putting a lot of money in this car, and he was frustrated. We dug a little deeper, cleaned the throttle body, and checked for trouble codes. No codes. So we recommended Berryman B12 Chem Tool. Carbon deposits and dirty fuel injector nozzles are a common problem with drivability in late model engines. We also recommended a higher quality gasoline. The customer noticed improvement on the first day, and only a few days and a few hundred miles later, the problem was completely gone. Berryman B12 Chem Tool features HEST, Berryman's exclusive high-energy solvent technology. The result is a more complete combination of available chemical technologies. Drive to BerrymanProducts.com for more information. That's BerrymanProducts.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
More than 1 million wild animals are killed each year illegally. Poaching is a major threat to our country's wildlife. I'm Tom Barry. I'm an actor with a desire to preserve living space for wildlife. The Humane Society Wildlife Land Trust does just that. Works with private landowners to protect wildlife, to preserve natural habitats. To learn more or to work with the Humane Society Wildlife Land Trust, call 800-729-SAVE. That's 800-729-SAVE, or visit wildlifelandtrust.org. Thank you.
Did you know 26 million Americans have kidney disease and most don't know it?
The day I was diagnosed, I didn't know what to do. I called the National Kidney Foundation, and the young lady who answered stayed on the phone with me and walked me through step by step. She too was surviving kidney disease. And she showed me there could be life after kidney disease.
Visit the National Kidney Foundation at kidney.org. Now you know.
We're a land of cynics. We don't believe anything anymore. You know why? Because we've been told we've won $1 million, that it's new and improved, that it slices and dices, that our favorite singer is still alive, that we'll be prosecuted if we cut off the tags, and of course that everything is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So when we hear the words customer service, we don't believe it. Travelocity isn't surprised if you're a little skeptical when they say they have excellent customer service, and that there's actually a pleasant face behind this website, a living, breathing person with a supercharged computer full of answers. Someone who's willing to help when you get lost, and most of all, someone that will actually pick up the phone when you call with a question or a concern. Customer service is just another example of how Travelocity puts you in control of travel. Chances are you'll never have to use it, but it's good to know it'll be there if you need it. Travelocity.com. Go virtually anywhere.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome back to this segment of Bobby Likis Car Clinic, brought to you in part by the Car Care Council, our partners. If you're traveling this holiday season, just remember these very intelligent words from our partners at the Car Care Council, the 3 P's of car care: prepare, prevent, and plan. You can save money and you can avoid breakdowns, and that's what you want to do this holiday season if you're traveling. Avoid breakdowns. So you should prepare, prevent, and plan. You can learn more of how to do exactly that at carcare.org. Again, that site, carcare.org. And while you're there, order yourself a car guide that you can put into your handy-dandy glove box, and you can learn a lot about the issues that are prevalent with the maintenance of caring for your automobile. That's the carcare.org website. We'll take a call from John. And folks, you know, earlier I had that broken pin scenario. One, it's over 8,000 scenarios, or 8,000 odds were. I thought that was really odd. John, welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Hello, how are you?
Terrific. You, sir?
Good. I called you about my Toyota RAV4. No power when it hits second gear. And you said to check the compression. I did. It's right up where it should be. I put new coils on it, coilover plugs on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I pulled out all the oxygen sensors and checked them for resistance. They seem to be okay. Still no power in second gear. It'll go into first, hit second gear, it almost goes dead. Once I get into third, it picks it back up. No idea.
Well, that doesn't make sense, because the same engine that propels the car in first and third is there for second gear, and second gear is just another step up from first. So it just, let me ask this question. Let's say that you're under hard acceleration. If you just say that you want to force this engine to excel, or at least to deliver all the power that it's got, or all the power it doesn't have, in your case, and you nail the throttle in first gear. I mean, it's the automatic transmission, right, John?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So you're in a safe area. There's no traffic, and you roll it away from the traffic light, and you nail the throttle in first, and or better yet, you're going to an on-ramp, because that's the easiest place to drag race. I do it all the time. Literally, I do it to exercise my engine, because I have a direct injection engine, and I know that there's a lot of carbon buildup that I can't get out of there short of taking the engine apart, and I'm not going to do that. So I nail the throttle once the engine is up to operating temperature and the oil has been run long enough to be up to operating temperature. That's two different things, because the engine will bring up to temperature long before the oil gets there. So I make it a habit to do that, and I'll do that at least twice a week on an on-ramp. That's a long on-ramp in my city. I nail the throttle, and it'll shift in the second gear, and then it'll shift in the third. And by the time I meet the traffic and the speed limit is 65 miles an hour, I am running 70. Now, and then I back off the throttle, and I'm where I want to be. So I said all that to say this: if you were to do that same procedure and you nail the throttle in first gear, not in first gear, you got the gear shift lever in drive, but you nail the throttle, do not let off the accelerator. I want you to try that this week and let it shift from first and second, and leave it. Don't worry, you cannot hurt this car. You cannot hurt the engine. You cannot over-rev the engine. It's controlled by a governor that's electronically controlled, and you're not going to hurt anything on the vehicle. So nail the throttle and see what it will do in first, and let it shift in the second, and it's going to be in the third before you ever hit the traffic. A long ramp. Find a long ramp. I want you to try that.
Well, I have to do that when I take off now. I have to push it all the way down to the floor just to keep up, get it going, to keep out of people's way.
Well, but you said it was okay. But wait, you said it was okay in first gear.
Yeah. So I get rolling, but then when I hit second, it starts to bog down.
Well, maybe.
So I got to punch it all the way to the floor to get moving.
Well, what if you punched it in first gear?
It goes right away. Just seems like when I hit second, so maybe a transmission problem.
No, I doubt it. You can't make me believe that.
Yeah, I checked the fuel pump, fuel filter.
You gotta put it through its paces. Get aggressive with it. Put it through its paces, because the difference between first and second is only road speed and engine RPM.
Right.
It just doesn't make sense that it cannot selectively choose second gear. If you had a problem with second gear, and the only problem you could have with second gear is that the engine would race up because it was slipping, and it's not doing that.
No, it doesn't do that.
Or it would be trying to select two gears, and then it would burn up second gear if it were trying, or the first gear, or whatever other gear it's trying to select. So to me, it sounds as though it could be shifting too early. And if you nail the throttle, if you have an exhaust restriction, which I could say, oh, you got an exhaust restriction, but that doesn't make sense, because if that's the case, it would have poor power in all the gears. So it doesn't make sense that it would have loss of power in second gear unless it was shifting too early into second gear.
Well, let me work on it a little bit and see what I can
do that.
See what happens, and I will get back with you.
Yeah, do that, and
solve the problem.
Okay, yeah, we'll do that. And another thing, John, you can do is, take this gear selector and lock it into first gear, and then find you a private road somewhere. You can do that. Lock it into first gear and roll about 5 miles an hour, and then quickly, not just stomp it, but quickly nail the throttle, and then let it and feel that first gear, and then move the gear selector up into second gear, or let it shift and then pull it back into first, because if you're going beyond 25 miles an hour and you've got it and it's already in second and you pull it back in the lever, back in the low, it's not going to go into low. It will if you slow down to 8, 10, 5, whatever miles per hour. But if you're already upshifted and you pull the gear selector back in low, it ain't going to go into low if it's beyond a certain point, because that could over rev the engine, and it's got an automatic safety. What I'm saying is, find the speed and the RPM at which you can selectively lock it into second gear, so that you can tease the throttle wide open and back and wide open and back, so you can eliminate the fact that it's a gear problem. I just don't, what you're saying, I'm sure you've got a problem, but you're not communicating, you don't know exactly how to communicate it with me, so I want you to selectively find how to tease first gear and then tease second gear and then third gear. You say it's okay. So I want you to do that. And then you're going to find that it's other issues. And to that end, if you lock it in low gear and run 15 miles an hour and then nail the throttle, you should be able to go until it either forces itself to upshift or the RPM stops, because it's electronically governed. So you can lock it in low and nail the throttle until something happens that ain't going to blow the engine.
Yeah, well, let me try that. It's a 2001 with low mileage. So.
Yeah, you're not going to hurt it. So just,
Okay.
Okay, you do that and call me back.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thanks. So he's going to call me next week and said, yeah, I did what you said, and I have this rod hanging out the side of my engine. Oh, gosh. That would be terrible. That's a low mileage car. The chances of that happen are like nil. It ain't going to happen. And folks, let me tell you something. With a new car, or with any new car, 96 and up, you can put the car in neutral in your parking lot, nail the throttle, and it'll go, it'll reach a certain RPM, and it just stops, because it's got a rev limiter. And I'll tell you why it's got a rev limiter. Because cars have so much power today that they'll run so fast that they are governed by the top speed. I mean, take a Mercedes, it'll run 180 miles an hour. It'll run 155 because the manufacturer governs it to 155. Ford trucks, and I didn't believe this until I tried it. Well, I'll take that back. I never tried it, but I've talked to some of my customers who tried it. A Ford truck, and Fabio, do you know a Ford truck's limited to 100 miles an hour? And I don't know what year that is, but 100 miles an hour. So well, how does the truck know it's going 100 miles an hour? If you're going 80 miles an hour and you pull it in the third, if it's in overdrive, you pull it back in the third, 4-speed, 5-speed. The engine thinks it's going 150 miles an hour. It still goes. It still goes faster. So I guess it's got a speed on the speed sensor is limited, and I think that's very interesting. It really, to me, it is. So I mentioned the Car Care Council, and I will share this with you. Their continuing message of the 3 Ps to prepare and plan and prevent is a really good thing for you to do. I can't emphasize strongly enough how, if you've ever been broken down on the highway with a water pump or a belt or a flat tire, you know that sinking feeling. But if there's an issue that could be avoided, how do you avoid that issue? How can you, and you prepare? And the way you can do that is, I think that perhaps if I'd written this, I'd have 4 P's. Prepare, prevent, and plan. And how do you do that? You be proactive. That would be a 4th P, being proactive. And I guess planning is proactive and preparing is proactive, and it prevents breakdowns. But folks, you can never be proactive enough with your automobile. I know that. Of course, I can't think of the last time, or if ever, I've had a car break down. I can remember breaking a car, but I can't remember. How do you break a car? Well, you do what I just told Jesse to do. You lock it in low gear until it blows up. I didn't say that. Let's go to Ted in South Carolina. Ted, welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Good sunny morning. Good sunny
morning to you, sir.
Day today.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I
got the idea.
Okay.
When you recommended that someone use B12 for several short trips rather than one long trip, and I thought, well, might that be beneficial before an oil change to use a little bit of B12 flush and drive it for several days gently?
Well, the ChemTool B12, the Berryman product, is not made for the oil. That's a cleaner. They do have an oil-based product that does clean the oil, but
that's what I'm talking about.
By all means. Okay. Well, Ted, you hit the nail on the head. Here's the challenge with adding an engine cleanser like the Berryman product in driving the car. When you drive the car, you put a lot of stress and strain on the bearings because you're opening the throttle and the engine temp goes up and with hills and what have you. So you want to use that product in a controlled environment. So in the shop or in your garage, that's a controlled environment where you run the engine, but you don't put a load on the engine, because what you're doing, and the reason you want to run the engine with the Berryman engine cleaner, you want to run it, I don't know you have to read the directions. For me, 20 minutes would not be too long, and you could vary the RPM. I definitely think, up to 3,000 RPM and back. 1,000, idle, 3,000, idle, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, because if you're not crawling inside an engine with a brush, then you're going to have pockets of coagulated oil and other sludge that have gotten built up over time. That's why you use a Berryman product. And so if you're not having a little miniature person in there cleaning out these pockets, you got to have a lot of oil, a lot of hurricane, a lot of volatile splashing. So by all means, you could do that, but only when you're about to change the oil, because once you break this carbon and sludge loose, you don't want to let the car sit overnight because it'll recoagulate. So you want to run it in your garage, and 15, 20 minutes is fine. Certainly, I would recommend that. And then you want to drain that out.
Instructions.
Yeah, exactly. Always follow the instructions. I'm not sure that men know how to do that.
They're only like 5 minutes. I thought,
yeah.
Err on the side of caution, I would give it an oil booster shot.
It's a great idea. I think that's a great idea. I think you hit the nail on the head. What do you drive, by the way?
Doing that.
Yeah, what do you drive, by the way?
It used to be my mother's car. It's a 1990 Lumina, and it has about 195,000 miles.
I got it. Well, certainly that's a good choice for it. Hey, Ted, thank you so much. Out of time. Thank you so much for your call today from South Carolina. And folks, as I said, that's all the time that we have today. Remember, if you've tuned into the show, if you're like Morris in South Carolina or Randall, perhaps in South Dakota, and you need parts for your non-Ford or Lincoln car, you can buy OEM parts from Omnicraft, which is a Ford brand. for your repair or even for your maintenance needs like oil filters, air filters, fuel filters, brakes. Omnicraft offers part solutions for all the non-Ford vehicles. I say non-Ford, we're talking Mercury and Lincoln and Ford, that include, as I mentioned, commonly used light repair items, cabin air filters, starters, alternators. Take a quick tour at omnicraftautoparts.com. Until next time, I'm your host, Bobby Likis. Like us, you'll love us.
This is Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Bobby Likis Car Clinic is a copyrighted presentation of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated and may not be reproduced or rebroadcast without the express written approval of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated.
Folks, we only partner with companies we believe in, like K-Seal, which is an excellent option for repairing a coolant leak, especially for older vehicles that may not be worth the cost to repair. But don't take our word for it. K-Seal was recently used to repair the block on a 1913 Type 22 Bugatti, the oldest running Bugatti in the U.S. with a value of approximately $2 million. K-Seal is available nationwide at part stores like O'Reilly Auto Parts. Learn more about K-Seal at kseal.com. Don't just seal it, K-Seal it.
Take advantage of Black Friday deals at O'Reilly Auto Parts. This Friday through Sunday, you'll find something for everyone on your list. Stereo accessories, Hot Wheels, universal backup cameras, cordless tools, gift cards, and more. You can even order online and pick them up in store. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
P. Ricey Outfitters, I'm Tina. How can I help you?
I'd like to place an order.
Great. Which item?
The cotton roll neck sweater, large.
Okay. Periwinkle, Loden, or caramel?
The caramel, please.
The what?
I'd like it in caramel.
Oh, the caramel?
Yeah, that's what I said, Tina.
Actually, you said caramel when it's pronounced caramel.
Can't we just call it yellow?
No.
Everyone knows the best part of a Milky Way. They just don't know how to say it. After all, it's our caramel.
It's caramel.
Ugh, that makes a Milky Way great.
You start my morning, you stir in my soul, you warm my heart, make me feel whole. Your aroma calls me, starts my morning, happy morning, your name is full